You're alive, Chairman.
No, it's not live, look.
No, streaming live, look, Tom.
Are you right now, Tom?
Just give us another second, Chair, just so we can double check it is working.
You-
Sorry.
You're right.
It says so.
It says on top of the screen it's working, Tom, that's all.
I can confirm the stream is now live, Chair.
Okay, thank you. Welcome everyone to this morning's live stream General Licensing Committee meeting. I'm Councillor Ray Heffer, Chair of the Licensing Committee. This meeting is open to the public and is being streamed live to YouTube and via the Council's website. It is also being recorded for the purpose of the minutes. If for any reason the public can no longer hear or see the meeting over the live stream, we will adjourn until the connection has been re-established. Can I remind members of the meeting etiquette has been circulated and the procedures that apply for remote attendees. All members should have their microphones muted and cameras turned on. Members are reminded you must remain on camera throughout the meeting and ensure you're alone in the room. Also, can I remind all members and officers in the council chamber to use the microphones, please, so you can be heard on the live stream and by those joining remotely. Before we start, I would like to confirm which committee members are present. In the chamber, I have the leader, Councillor Fritchley, and Councillor Bowler and myself. Can you let us know the attendees, please, Tom?
Yes, thank you very much, Chair. The members of the committee who are in a remote attendance, I will just do a roll call of you all. So when I say your name, please state your name, your ward, and confirm that you can see and hear me as well, please. First of all, Councillor David Downs.
Hi, Tom. Councillor David Downs, Sharbrook South, and I can see and hear you.
Thank you very much. Councillor Tracy Cannon.
Good morning, all. Councillor Tracy Cannon, South Normanton East, and yes, I can hear and see you all. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Andrew Josbury.
Councillor Andrew Josbury, South Normanton East, Vice Chair, and I can see and hear you.
Councillor Rita Turner. I think you need to unmute, Councillor Turner.
Dropped off then. It does roll.
Sorry about that. Councillor Rita Turner representing Elmpton, Cresswell and Hodthorpe Ward. And yes, I can see and hear you.
Very much. Councillor Maxine Dixon.
Councillor Maxine Dixon, Barbara and Clown North Ward, and yes, I can see and hear you.
Thank you. Councillor Jane Bryson.
Councillor Jane Bryson, South Normanton West Ward. Yes, I can see and hear you. Okay.
Councillor Ross Walker. You muted, Councillor Walker.
Bear with me. Stop video now. Fat fingers. Councillor Ross Walker, Clown East Ward. I can hear and see. Okay.
And Councillor Paul Cooper.
Hi, Councillor Paul Cooper, representing Bolsover and Bolsover North and Shuttlewood, and I can hear and see you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
In addition, we also have a number of officers joining remotely as well. Myself, Governance Officer Tom Scott, Governance Officer Alison Bluff, Kevin Shillito, Solicitor, Deb Cartwright, Solicitor, and Kevin Rowland, Licensing Team Leader. And I'll hand back to you, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you, Tom. The first item on today's agenda is apologies for absence. Have we received any in advance?
Councillor Roberts, Chair.
Okay. Are there any other apologies? No? The second item is urgent business. However, there is no urgent business for today's agenda. The third item is declarations of interest. Members are requested to declare the existence and nature of their any disclosable pecuniary interests and or other interests not already on their register of interest. If any item on the agenda, and withdraw from the meeting at the appropriate time. Have we received any declarations in advance, Alison?
None received, Chair.
Do any other members have any interest to declare? No. Right. The fourth item then on the agenda is the draft sex establishment policies. And can I have the pleasure to hand over to Deb Scarwright, the solicitor, to present the report, please, Deb.
Good morning, members. Yes, you may recollect this coming up on your agenda some time ago when a vote was taken, in fact, to recommend to the council to adopt the legislation which would mean that we could proceed with formulating a sex establishment policy. So on the basis of that recommendation by the licensing committee, which I think now was last year, in fact, you will see that you have been sent, members, a copy of the draft sex establishment policy that, subject to your approval and any comments you may have, is the version that it is intended to take to public consultation. You will know from the report that I have prepared that the scrutiny committee has already approved the that draft that you have now been sent, and so now I would invite members of the committee to review and provide comments. Once those comments have been made, if there are any amendments to that draft, that will then be circulated as part of the public consultation process. I don't know, Chair, whether it's appropriate at this stage to invite members to comment on the contents of that draft policy, or whether I should proceed with the rest of my report at this stage, and then the members may wish to comment. I'm happy. I'm in your hands, Chair, on this.
I think the second, do your report, please, Debs, and then any questions or additions or takeaways can be added to that at the end, please, Deb.
Certainly, Chair.
Thank
so
you.
Once we've carried out the 12-week consultation and got the results in, I'll be working with Kelly Bradford, the consultation and equalities lead in the performance team, on formulating that consultation, because it's not obviously within an area of expertise that I have any experience in. Once we've done that, that will then be brought back to this committee, and the results of that consultation will be incorporated into the draft policy. The final version of that policy will then be subject to this committee's approval and taken to the full council for approval. Obviously, we need to prepare a local area profile. That will be prepared as a separate document. That is in development at this stage, but that will be taken forward as well for consultation. The policy itself, Chair, I've summarised within the report. It will include the findings of the public consultation. It will set out the statutory criteria for grounds for refusing any application for a sex establishment licence, and it will separately detail the council's policy in respect of the granting of licences for each type of sex establishment. And you will recall, Chair, that sex establishments really mean sexual entertainment venues, sex cinemas and sex shops. The policy details other legislation relevant to the grant or refusal of a licence. It will include the exemptions. It will include the procedure for the grant and refusal of licence and revocations, and will detail interpretation of key terms, as well as setting out the standard conditions for each type of sex establishment. I should say that with regard to all of this, I've obviously worked with Kev Rowland, who's been very helpful in finalising that policy. It is lengthy, and you may see that it's actually a lot longer than some of the policies that have been adopted by other local district councils. But as you may recall, Chair, when I initially began work on this, I looked at many different councils' policies and selected from that the most comprehensive and, in my view, the most resilient, in order that this council can have the greatest authority and power, not only over the grant and refusal of licences, but also the terms that are set, and in particular, the number that are permitted, and in particular, the locations where those establishments should be placed. So whilst it's a lengthy document, I think I believe that it's right for this authority, because it gives us the greatest powers, or gives councillors, I should say, I apologise, the greatest powers, and it ensures that the residents within this district have their voice listened to. And I think members would agree that those issues are perhaps the most important. I don't know at this stage, Chair, whether members have any comments on the contents of that report, or indeed the process that I've just summarised.
Thank you, Deb. Has anybody got any questions? Ross, yeah, we got your hand up.
Thank you. I've just got one question. You'll have to bear with me because I'm not fully up to speed with all this. Exemptions on page 21, 2.31. The following sexual entertainment venues are exempt by the Act from a licensing requirement. These are defined as premises where relevant entertainment has been provided on no more than 11 occasions within a 12-month period. Could you just expand a little bit more on that? Does that mean if they're providing entertainment or showing films or anything along those lines, but they haven't done it more than 11 times in a 12-month period, will they be exempt from the Licensing Act?
Yes, yes, they are exempt from the legislation. So obviously where the legislation doesn't provide us with any powers, we unfortunately have none. That's just the way Parliament has drafted the legislation, I'm afraid.
Right, thank you. I'm just concerned that somebody could put entertainment on once a month and miss 1 month out in a year, and it won't be, you won't have to have a license to do that.
Yeah, I mean, I take your point, but there may be other powers that we can invoke in those circumstances around public safety, around other licensing legislation and regulation. But so far as the legislation in relation to sex establishment licensing, and that's obviously what we're concerned with here, you know, we would have no powers in that event.
Deborah, I think Kevin's got a bit of a help to.
Yes, Chair.
Thank you for that, Deborah.
If I can just give it as an example, the Licensing Act to some extent would cover, I'll call them small scale events, you know, up to 11 occasions per year. So the Licensing Act does cover regulated entertainment and adult entertainment within that. So if somebody was applying for a license under the Licensing Act, we could add conditions or we could control the adult entertainment under that to some extent. So for instance, no under 18s permitted on the premises at the time the adult entertainment was taking place. So there are controls and measures available, but we couldn't do it under the sex establishment legislation.
Thanks so much for that.
Anybody else got anything for?
Can I just ask, Chair?
Steve's got one.
On that same one on exemptions, am I right in understanding that the actual policy relates to a business rather than incidental activity?
Yes.
In pursuit of another business?
Yes.
Thanks, fine. Yeah.
Thanks, Deb. No, right. Nobody else got any questions for Deborah?
Just one more then, Chairman.
Right.
I mean, I've had a quick look through this, and it's got to go out of consultation. As part of that consultation, there'll be a list put together to satisfy the list that are missing in this report.
Yes.
That's right. So would it be appropriate at this stage, Chairman, just to actually move acceptance of this report and go straight to consultation?
Yeah, yes, forgive me. Well, I was going to say, if members of this committee are happy with that draft report, the next stage will be to move towards public consultation. And the reason, the reason that we're doing it that way round, rather than adopting the legislation and then going for public consultation on the contents of the policy, is because it makes it much less likely, nigh on impossible, for there to be a challenge by an entrepreneur wanting to set up an establishment who might argue that this council had no mandate in relation to even the adoption of the legislation. So we're going to the public, following the national guidance, we're going to the public to say, essentially, do you want this council to have measures in place to control and regulate sex establishments? And then the second question, essentially, because the answer to that is, I think, based on other local authorities, it's going to be a resounding yes. And then the second question for public consultees will be, and what do you want to see in that policy? So the reason we're doing it this way is to make, if you like, doubly sure that it cannot be argued that you do not have a mandate to introduce regulation of sex establishments. Does that make sense?
Chair, I mean, this is why I suggested it. You know, it makes sense because we've got to look at locality profiles. You're looking at various other things, other factors when we go out of public consultation. And as Deborah's just said, it does make a difference when we're actually formulating an acceptance policy at a later stage. So I'd formally move that we do that, Chairman.
Right. Steve's moved. Has anybody seconded?
Yeah, I'll second that.
That's you, Andy, was it?
It was, yeah.
Yeah, thank you. Are we all in favour then of the adoption and then it go out to public consultation? All in favour? Yeah. Is anybody against? Any abstentions? No, Alison, I think that's unanimous. Whether you go to not. You all right, Alison, with that?
She's still there.
Yeah, she's still there. Yeah. Okay. Right. That concludes the meeting. Sorry.
Can I just congratulate Deb on this report? None of us have looked at these this sex establishment things before, but as I was reading through it, there was nothing I could find that I could really pick up on, and so she's made a fantastic job, and I'd like to congratulate her on it.
Thank you very much, Councillor. Thank you. That's very kind of you.
I think we all do that, Deborah, you know that.
Thank
know,
you.
Thank you.
Chair.
All right. So that concludes the meeting, and the live stream will now be terminated to the public with the use of those on YouTube.